I'm not Bruce Taylor. Bruce Taylor's a colleague of mine at the Suncor Commerce City refinery, which is just north side of Denver. Really interesting guy. He started out as a boy scientist with NASA, right here, close by here at the Kennedy Space Center, and moved to Houston with NASA and was in the he was on the simulation team, and this was back in the Apollo days, and he was in the mission control when Apollo 13 called in and said, "Houston, we've got a problem." Those guys slept on tables until they got that splashdown. So he's got some real interesting stories to tell. He then worked for Digital Equipment Corporation for a number of years. And after Palmer downsized that, he was a consultant, and we hired him as a program manager at the Suncor Sarnia refinery when we were doing our refinery information management systems program in the late 1990s. And he did a super job of pulling that all together. I was running process control, advanced process control, real-time optimizations. And after we got that RIMS program installed in about 1999, they handed me IT as well. Later on, Bruce consulted for a number of people, and then in 2006 we hired him into the Denver refinery, which we just bought a few years before. And then, as far as I became the product production processes manager for the whole Suncor enterprise, which included the two refineries, the gas plants, the oil sands operations, the mines, the in situ operations, even the power plants. And so that was I had something like over 500 applications that operated in an operational role in the company, in the whole enterprise. The CIO at the time came to me and said, "Geez, Cliff, you've got all this data in your systems that we need in the big ERP program that we're putting in, because we've got to calculate KPIs and the like. How do we do that?" And so I got involved with standards-based interoperability and figuring out how to merge these systems together from the devices on up through to the big corporate ERP system, which I'll remain unnamed, but you can all guess what it was. Suncor is an integrated oil company. Now it's the fifth largest in North America, behind Exxon, Shell, BP, Chevron. We first pioneered the oil sands operations in 1967. It was Great Canadian Oil Sands at the time. I was actually old enough to remember that plant being built and started up. And what we do is to dig the oil out of the ground, or now we can steam it out of the ground with steam-assisted gravity drainage. So there's both a mining operation and a horizontal drill operation where you shoot steam down on the top pipe, and warms up after about 6 months to a year, and you can start to suck it out with bottom hole pumps. At the plant, they run it through a coker and make gas oils, kerosene, naphtha, blend it together into a synthetic crude, and then you can pipe it to existing oil refineries where we can make diesel, gasoline, and jet fuel out of it and the like. There is actually a diesel plant right at the Fort McMurray facility, because Alberta's short on diesel. They do have gas plants. In 2006, Suncor and Petro-Canada merged, and they acquired the Hibernia oil field off of Newfoundland, offshore, and a number of assets in places like Syria and Libya and other places in the world. Also, two more refineries at Edmonton and Montreal, a lube plant just outside of Toronto, and we built an ethanol plant in Sarnia that now produces 400 million liters a year, ethanol from corn. And there is about 1,500 Petro-Canada retail sites across the country. And we also generate wind power, which with 6 projects primarily in Alberta, Saskatchewan, and in Ontario, about 255 megawatts. So today we'll focus on workforce development. If you're talking about targeted training, what's the target? What's planning and the execution of those plans? And management change. How many of you folks do management of change? Yeah, exactly. We've all learned to put in management of change programs into our plants and our operations. That's some interesting principles we can apply here. And we'll summarize. Muhammad Ali said, I hated every minute of training, but I said, don't quit. Suffer now and live the rest of your life as a champion, which he has done. The odds of hitting your target go up dramatically when you take aim at it. If you don't know the target, you can't aim at it. And how many people shoot away and never aim? So we've always heard about the, fire, ready, aim philosophy. So we need to identify the drivers, and also management's interested in what kind of return you're going to get on this. What are the job requirements, the regulatory requirements, the individual leadership development. Very important, and as my colleagues here said, the workforce culture. What's the morale, what's the engagement, etc. What's a prerequisite for the jobs? Have you defined the job profiles, the roles, responsibilities, the skills, competencies, and the learning resources? Hopefully that's all part of your HR system, but sometimes it's got gaps and it's missing. What are the business goals and plans for the next 3 to 5 years? Why are you hiring? What are they supposed to do, or are they going to do for you? And what's the knowledge base of your employees and of your workforce? What's the current skills and the competencies? What are the personal interests and needs and goals? We've all heard about the millennials have different needs and goals than us baby boomers. And what are the motivators and demotivators of the people you're considering for these? So, and identify the training gaps. Can't hit the target if we don't know what it is, and where the part of that is, where are the gaps and what are they? Build a training plan that's got about a 3 to 5 year outlook, and document this in your performance management tool, whatever you're using for that. Most companies have got some sort of HR system now. Training and development goals, the activities of the employees, activities of the leaders, what they're responsible for, and work together with the HR system. Has to be sanctioned by HR, also has to be auditable by HR, and review it biannually and refresh it annually. Interesting, 5 steps in teaching an employee new skills are preparation, explanation, showing, observation, and supervision. Good advice. Employees are your most critical asset, and guess what? They walk out the door at the end of every day, and it's their option as to whether or not they come back in the morning. So you can't always count on them being there the next day. It's up to them, and the millennials are more likely to walk out and not come back than us baby boomers. Applying the same rigor as we do to our physical access, and recognize there's no replacement. You lose somebody, you can't go to the warehouse and get a part in kind. You can't go and just pick somebody off the street with the same skills and experience that you just lost. So retention is an issue. Create full equivalent life cycle management capability. That's a mouthful, but really what it says is you're going to have to look after, just like we look at the whole life cycle of the plants, from design, engineer, build, operate, maintain, and eventually decommission and tear down. We have to look at our employees' careers the same way, the job the same way. Management of change. We do it. We're familiar with it on the technical side and on the physical side, the equipment side, the operations side. We've got very precise, prescribed procedures for doing that. Let's look at doing the same ideas, applying the same principles to personnel. So, targeted training is only effective if you have a target. Seems obvious. I've seen all kinds of programs go in place, and even HR programs that don't really know what the target is. Haven't defined the objectives adequately. First, the workforce has to fully engage that. So you need everybody involved with that, whether you're hiring operators, maintenance people, or process engineers. The workforce has to be engaged that are affected. Requires extensive pre-work and knowledge. That should go unsaid, but oftentimes is missing. And your workforce requires equal or better commitment. It's the same life cycle management applied as to the physical assets. Management of change personnel is integral and of equal importance to management of change, technical and physical, and requires cross-functional top-down commitment. Suncor has cross-functional teams that look at issues like this periodically and in all aspects of the business. The only real training for leadership is leadership, and experience plays a good factor, and the truism I always use is good experience comes from, good judgment comes from experience, and experience comes from bad judgment. That's what I'm trying to say. So I'll keep this short, and hopefully we can discuss how these things play in the next few minutes. Thank you.